Today, I'm talking with my good friend, Mary Emeny. Hey, Mary.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well.
We are sitting on a bench outside in the Texas Panhandle to talk about some of Mary's passions, which is about the environment, especially the natural environment and sustainability of that environment, and regenerating that environment so we can have a great place to live in the future. So that's kind of sum it up.
Thank you.
Well, you've been a big advocate for this ever since I've known you. We met years ago. Gosh, it's been...
It's been 20?
25
5
years.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, It's been a long time. Yeah, we were on the Wildcat Bluff board together.
And Discovery Center before that.
Discovery Center before that.
That's right. But we were the Wildcat Bluff board. So this property here, meaning this part of the world, including Wildcat Bluff and Mariposa that we're trying to work on too, is all about what does the community in Amarillo, especially this part of the Panhandle, what can it do for the community so people can come and enjoy the natural environment that is so close to town, especially with town encroaching upon these different environments for development. But the important thing that I want to ask you about, because you know this really well, is about water and the aquifer. What's your impression right now of the aquifer that we're sitting on?
Well, it's depleting.
Yeah.
It's depleting, and actually we are right on the edge of the aquifer. Basically, I-40 creates a spine between two whole ecosystems, two whole watersheds. Everything south of I-40 goes to Palo Duro. Everything north of I-40 goes to the Canadian, and it's different soil type, it's different geology, and basically, as soon as you get off the cap rock here, the cap rock is the aquifer here, is the Ogallala. So when you get north of here, like if you're looking out any place north of town, that water has to come from deeper than the Ogallala.
So when you say it goes to the Canadian, that's the Canadian River.
Canadian River, yes.
A long time ago, when I was working in professionalism, I had to get some stuff shipped here. And the guy I talked to was in New Jersey. He said, well, we'll just ship it down the river. I said, which river? He said, well, I'm looking at the map. It says Canada River. I said, oh, it's Canadian. No. It's not going to work.
No, but there was a time. I mean, my grandfather was here in 1880. And back then, and my mom first came here in about 1914 when she was 5. And they used to get to ride out to what's now Wildcat Bluff, which was a roaring river at that time. She and her sister each got caught in quicksand there, and it was a major stop when during the migrations west, when the people have heard of the Santa Fe Trail, but there's also a southern branch started by a man named Josiah Gregg, who decided the original Santa Fe started from Kansas City, but he said if I went south, I could start earlier in the spring. And so he came across what was then called Indian Territory, Oklahoma, and there was they would go from water source to water source. So there was actually a stop at behind Palo Duro High School. There's a plaque back there. They would spend the night at Wild Horse Lake. Then they would come here at noon, and it was a real challenge to get across this river at that time. And then the next stop would be 10 miles west at the Tecovas Creek, and then to keep going that way. So water's been, certainly for anybody moving west, water is the key factor. And it's why we can live here.
We've had a lot of conversations about water recently because of AI and data centers.
Yeah.
And we just did a town hall last week about this. If we exclude all that crazy, we're still in trouble because we are extracting water at a rate that we're not replenishing the water.
Exactly.
And we've been doing this for a long time. A lot of people, and they told me when I was on the city council, we have 100 years of water left. But that's not a good argument for not taking care of the water. It's just an argument by saying, well, our great-great-grandchildren will have to suck it up.
Exactly.
It's a terrible way to manage
I agree.
things.
I agree. And there's so many things that we can do. I mean, so much of our whole economy is based on extraction. And there are so many things that you can do to regenerate. So on the ranch, we're here, my grandfather was here in 1880. There's been a ranch in our family ever since. And on the ranch, we're working in that direction really moving cattle instead of anytime a property's overgrazed, it's going to suck water, and by regenerating and really regenerating the soil and the traditional grass system, we think that water will come back. And we've done some things like put in some sort of artificial dams and are watching water stay longer and pool more. So there are things that people are beginning to do, and unfortunately it's beginning to be fairly widely accepted as these are practices that make sense. It's growing. It has a long ways to go, but it is growing, and people don't just say you're nuts when you start talking about it anymore.
Oh, that's progress. So when you say cattle, you move the cattle around.
We move the cattle around, and the limiting factor is water. So what you really want, if you look at the traditional way that this prairie systems work all across the world, you'd have herds of animals densely together because it's safer, grazing away. And then along would come pack predators, be they wolves or hyenas or jackals or humans. It didn't matter. What they would do would be to bunch up, fertilize like crazy, and get the hell out of there, digging their hooves into the soil, creating microcatchments for water. And they would tend not to come back until they couldn't smell their own feces, which would be a year or more. And that would give the grass plenty of time to regenerate. The way when you fence in property and just let the cattle roam free, they're going to eat all the youngest, tenderest grasses first, and then the next ones and the next ones and the next ones, and all of a sudden you have no good grass. So what we've been able to do, and it's fascinating to me that really our understanding of prairie systems and the technology we have to actually make it work kind of co-evolved. They both came about really in the 70s. It was a man who grew up in Rhodesia when it was Rhodesia, and then he worked in game parks. He said they kept culling animals, and they still being overgrazed, and then all of a sudden he had this aha. It's not the length, it's not the number of animals, it's the length of time they're in any one place. So you can't do it with barbed wire. It's too expensive and too hard to move. But now with hot wire and now high tensile, and now you can even do it on an iPad if you have the right technology. You can move cattle. You can move fences easily and reconfigure pastures. So what we've been able to do on the ranch is build a lot of smaller areas with hot wire, and we can move denser groups of cattle in for shorter periods of time and then get them out, and then leave more rest time. So
you said something really illuminating about they won't come back until they don't smell their own feces. Mm-hmm. I think you just described Congress.
I wish.
Maybe. So
okay.
I know that our project in Mariposa, mm-hmm. and what we're trying to do to regenerate the environment, mm-hmm. here, that's good for the whole community. It's difficult to explain some of the vision to people, but we know what we're trying to do. But I also know that at the end of the property, at the mm-hmm. back end, near the Girl Scout camp, there's an old creek. Mm-hmm. So tell me about that creek.
So the creek, that's the west branch of Amarillo Creek. The East Branch goes through the medical center, and they meet up near Boys Ranch and go into the Canadian. This was a roaring river up until, certainly in the 20s and 30s and 40s. In about 1950, you can see all the mesquite in this area. There used to be almost no mesquite here. When I was a little kid, there was almost no mesquite.
So this is all mesquite.
This is all mesquite. This is all mesquite behind us. And it started coming in intensively in the 50s, which I think it's a combination. I have a battle with my son about this, but it's probably some combination of it. First of all, the overgrazing had gotten to a point where it would germinate. If you have a heavy grass cover, the mesquite can't germinate. But also in the first 50s was when we started trucking cattle. So mesquite beans have to go through through an animal before they will germinate. So
I didn't know that.
So when you had to drive cattle up or take a train and it took 2 or 3 days, they'd let the mesquite beans out before they got here. When you can load them up in South Texas and deliver them here the next morning, they bring the mesquite beans up and drop them here. So
all of this, the history is poop trees.
That's my theory.
Okay.
That's my theory. I haven't confirmed it, but I have there are other people who sort of believe at least that's part of it.
All right.
That's definitely part of the story. Back to the poop story.
Yeah.
I mean, really, as a rancher, you need to know your shit, literally, because you can tell what the cattle are eating, how their digestion is, and whether actually it's getting broken down. Because when you have the other part of that is that we don't use any antibiotics. Because when you use antibiotics, you don't get the dung beetles that break those down and turn them into compost and build your soil. So literally knowing your shit is part of ranching.
Well, I love learning these things because it is the environment that we're in.
Yeah.
Now this congressional district is big. And
it is
a
huge.
lot of different biomes. And so when Mary had mentioned the Canadian River,
right.
And I was up there and I saw some old photos of floods happening, and it was a raging river.
It was a raging river, with lots of quicksand.
Yes. Then you'd mentioned the other side. The water goes to Palo Duro, which is Palo Duro State Park.
It's just the Prairie Dog branch of the Red River.
That's right. Yeah. So, and sometimes that floods pretty significantly in the state park.
It does.
When we get a lot of rain.
Well, and what happens is that because this is a national policy many years ago, was to get rid of beavers, but beavers are the best engineers on the planet, and what beavers would do would be to once we got rid of beavers and the sides of the canyon would incise more and more and more. This has happened out to Wildcat Bluff. I love at Wildcat Bluff going out and asking people, what's the newest geologic feature here? It's the creek bed, because that's been incised down from the top. And that all happens when there's drought is a big factor, but you get these flood throughs of rivers that if they don't have a place to spread out and water a large area, they're going to incise the property, particularly if it's sandy soil, which we have, and Palo Duro has. So it's all fits together. There's a whole So one of the reasons that we say on the ranch we're getting some back is we've built these little sort of artificial beaver dams that stop the water, so it's actually spreading out farther and doesn't get as deep, and that actually creates wildlife buffers for wildfires. It builds green places for animals when it's as dry as this, and does a whole lot of other ecologically beneficial things.
What I'm pretty amazed about is how quickly things come back. So at Mariposa, we built a little small pond, and that was because there's construction. So where we're sitting right now, it's off of this road called Sonsi, and they've been doing construction to make it a bigger, faster road. And so the construction people we had to do some stuff with dirt. Anyway, they made a pond for us. And when I'd ride my bicycle out there, I see turtles in the water. Where did the turtles come from? How did they get into this pond? These are mysteries.
The mysteries to me too. But nature's amazing in terms of animals. The instincts of animals, we don't even begin to know what they are.
So this gets me back to the Amarillo Creek. And I know we've talked about a long-term project about rejuvenating that area. It's a very valuable thing, especially with Girl Scout camp and things we could do. But those people in the district who are closer to Dallas and Denton, Wichita Falls, they're struggling with water too.
Right.
And in Decatur, I had a meeting, and they're very concerned about being out of water. And they're not on an aquifer like we are, like the aquifer that we kind of pull from. But one way or the other, we are all in bad shape for water.
Well, there's various things that you can do. For example, I have a friend who lives in Tucson, and he does this slideshow where he shows himself kayaking down the street after a storm. Streets flood, and what happens to all that water? It goes into a storm sewer and disappears. So what he and his brother did, they got this house in this kind of grungy community where they could afford it, and they did a curb cut, and they dug out, instead of where what I grew up in Cleveland, we call them the tree lawn. Other people call them something else, but the place between the sidewalk and the street where there's often trees, they dug that out. And so the water would come on your property instead of run away from the property. And they used that, and then they planted food-bearing trees in there. And basically, it was so successful, they started doing it up and down the streets, and it got so successful, the city in Tucson now does it for you, at least makes the curb cut, and it's changing. It's both putting water back where it belongs, not in a storm sewer where it disappears and goes to nowhere, goes to a tank somewhere, but back into the soil where it actually starts to rebuild whatever water you have.
So that's the replenishment to long term to the aquifer.
Exactly.
That I'm really interested in.
Exactly.
From a federal level.
Exactly.
So how do we promote this? How do we give these incentives and then build real science around it?
I agree. Well, the science is there. The science is there, and the technology is there. Brad has a whole books about this. He's written a couple of books about doing this work, and has been doing it for 25 years. In various places. But the thing with water is that we always want to get it away from us as fast as possible. And what you need to do is to slow it down so it stays. Slow it down so it stays.
Well, one of the big things that I do want to work on is changing our mentality of an extractive economy to a replenishment economy.
Amen.
And water being the main driver.
Absolutely.
Because we cannot ethically say we have X amount of water and then we're done.
Exactly.
We put a time limit on it. We know that's the end.
Yeah.
And the Dust Bowl will be such a minor story compared to what's going to happen for us in the future. And we spend our time...
For our children and grandchildren.
Well, that's right. And we spend our time talking about, let's move to Mars.
Why?
There is no...
Yeah.
We cannot even figure out how to do it here the right way for future generations. Go to a planet that doesn't have anything.
Exactly.
And it's more inhospitable than Antarctica.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to throw away what is right in front of us.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's also a misconception too, is that you do all this environmental stuff and it costs you money and you don't get anything back for it. It's not true. Since we've started working to improve our soil, we've gone from 600 head to I think we're at 1,300 head now of cattle that we can run and still have enough grass and still be regenerating the soil. So you can actually, soil rules. Soil is the base of everything that we eat, of everything that we are, of everything that we build. So the most effective thing we can do is build soil, and just a lot of the traditional methods that we got away from when we got into mechanical farming are the ones that make sense because they work.
Right. Well, that's why I think now when we talk about the depletion of the aquifer, and they're all fingers pointing at all sorts of things.
Sure.
Oh, it's the farmer, just the rancher.
No, it's the whole system. It's the whole system that says mechanize and get bigger and bigger and bigger, and nature does not monocrop.
Right.
Nature does not monocrop, and just like a diverse community is much more interesting and much healthier. A diverse ecosystem is the same.
So that part of my passion on this is not just how we rejuvenate and re-energize the environment, but how do we do that with power as well? Because really power is just another form of extraction.
So the way we're doing it.
That's exactly right. We have, and that's finite as well, because we're just mining dead plants from a long, long time ago. But we also know that the most energy efficient power that humans have made is solar photovoltaics. And and this gets to policy, because it has been limited so far that people want to do something with solar but it's too expensive. Put something on my roof, it's too expensive. But now there's a big driving force of this thing called plug-in solar that you put on your balcony. It's coming out of Germany.
Oh, cool.
You buy it pretty cheap, plug it in, and you get some power.
Cool.
And we need to remove barriers
Exactly.
for people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, we're dealing right now with a fight with Excel over this huge, humongous power line system that they want to put right through the center of the ranch.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and it's basically, they're being a little cagey. They're saying, oh, it's for future development. Well, we're pretty sure it's probably for AI, but it's also, it's because you make money off of selling power to people.
That's right. So what they're doing is they're saying we're generating power over here, some fashion, right? It could be coal, it could be wind, and then they want to distribute that power over here.
Exactly.
And to get it from here to here, they have to go in your property.
Exactly.
So they're declaring eminent domain.
Exactly.
To do it.
Exactly. And basically screwing up property we've tried to steward for 120 years, 140 years.
Right.
Now.
Right. And the problem with all this is that massive power distribution at this level is very inefficient.
It's very, yeah.
The lines get hot. We know this from the fires that happened in the Panhandle a few years ago. Hot, high voltage lines, if we think in a different way about localized energy creation,
Exactly.
that builds an economy for people who are there locally, all through this district, all through the state.
I agree.
And it gives a lot of opportunity for development in the future for younger generations. And then it's autonomous. They have their power in their hands. Right now, we're in a crazy war. And the gas price is up because of one strait of lockdown. And now we're saying, oh, well, we got to fix this problem, and then the war's over. We created the problem.
We created the problem. But, you know, if you look, maybe this will be the wake-up call that says, hey, if one country can control that strait, maybe we need to think beyond oil.
Well, I certainly hope so.
I hope so,
now,
too.
I know that there is an awful lot of incentives by traditional companies that are funding political candidates to keep those incentives in place.
Right.
This has been the story forever.
Sure.
So it gets to the heart of this matter, which is campaign funding and the corruption around it. Yeah. And I will talk a lot about this stuff later on. Today it's about but really the environment is a sacrificial lamb.
It is.
To the degree that's happening over here.
It totally is. And what that means is that we're sacrificing our grandkids.
Yes. And then we have small family farms. And a lot are going out of business this year.
46% declared bankruptcy in Kansas. I think I heard that the other day.
So pretty much everyone I've talked to say the same thing. We're getting a bailout, whatever that means, from the government. But that's paying the bill. It goes right to the bill. And we are still doggy paddling, barely surviving.
Right.
And then they say, well, we need rain, we need water. Yes.
But we also need markets, and you also need need markets.
And there is no such thing as the free market is a misnomer, because markets are driven by the government because the government makes the money.
Right.
But we can have a fair market. And that's what all these farmers want. It's just a chance to sell their stuff.
Right.
Which means to make a fair market, we could put market floor in place. We could do things that actually do the right thing for their families and makes the market fair for all of us who are buying the stuff. So we know even here locally, local honey producers, they just want to get a crack at something. But when you go into big major retailers, they don't have a shot.
Right.
So there's a lot of monopolistic practices, and I don't want to drive the conversation to economics, but I always do. So, but really, we are giving up what the livelihood of this area is, the whole district, because of economics and the perverse incentives around them.
I have I was asked a few years ago to do a talk for a church convention, and it occurred to me that the Beatitudes actually are a very good model for sustainable thinking. So we talk about in the beginning was the Word, right? Is the first verse of John. So Word is logos, right? So you think of all the different languages that have logos. We have theology, ecology, biology, zoology, anthropology, all this stuff. Economy is not on that scale. However, economy and ecology both mean basically the same thing, rules of the house. Whether it's the rules of, in Christian terms, God's house, or whether it's my house. And if we don't get beyond thinking beyond our house, we're going to screw up the whole thing.
That's great. Exactly. Economy is only a study of scarcity. That's really a human social science.
Because the natural world is about abundance and not about scarcity.
Yeah.
It's about abundance, and that's what we're called to. I think as human beings.
Speaking of abundance, the last thing I want to talk about, so I've been here for a little bit, my nemesis, goat heads.
Goat heads.
So what happened was, I was talking to Mary earlier about riding my bicycle. My bicycle's a magnet for goat heads, and it just flat tire left and right. But then Mary tells me why goat heads are important.
Okay, so goat heads we call pioneer plants, and if you notice where they grow. I have them growing like I have a caliche driveway, and there used to be lots of them on that caliche driveway, and now where they were, I have buffalo grass. So what the goat head's job is, we all know what they are, and some people call them sandburrs. So if you look at them, they have a single taproot that goes down. And what does that do? They go into horrible soil. First of all, you don't find them where there's less grass. They go into bad soil, and they give basically like a straw to take water down into that soil to help break up the soil. They spread out their stickers so they won't be eaten, and provide shade. So if the first thing that dead soil needs or dry soil needs is shade, because if the soil temperature gets above 140 degrees, it's dead. So it provides shade, and then that'll break down over the winter and help create soil. So basically we call it pioneer plants. Is it because the pioneers are always stickly? I mean, think in terms of human history. We had, when on the trek west, it was the mountain men that went first. The mountain men and the hunters and then they were pretty prickly characters, and we have all the Wild West stuff that came out of that. And then over time came the women, first the prostitutes, and the Harvey girls, but then things got more and more civilized, right? So,
I don't know if prickly prostitute's a good bumper sticker, but
no, the mountain men were prickly.
Mountain men.
they were the next level of soil.
Yes. So I had always considered goat heads being these little sharp things, is sent by the devil incarnate to just give me flat tires. I mean, I just couldn't figure it out until you told me the story.
So one of the principles of nature is nature always works for softer solutions, but sometimes it has to start very hard. So it as it breaks down, it creates a softer solution. So now where we had goat heads, lots of goat heads 10 years ago, I have grass without doing anything.
So now my respect for goat heads is increased.
Doesn't mean you have to like them. But you do have to respect them.
That's right. I respect. I don't like them, but I respect them. But it's similar to, even in this environment here, 15 years ago, I saw many more horny toads. Or horned toads.
Horned lizards.
Yeah.
Horned lizards, actually.
Horned lizards. I don't want to describe horny lizards, but I haven't seen many of them recently.
Well, we have them out here. We have them out here. We have them on the ranch. Basically, where we poison ants, they're little red ants are their food, and in town people poison the ants, so they basically don't have a food source.
Now we still live high enough on the Caprock and Amarillo, where it's cold enough that really nasty, dangerous ants.
We do not have. We don't have fire ants, but we do have red ants.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's the whole district, like I said, pretty diverse. But it's good for people to know, and one of the goals we have in the campaign is to connect all of us.
I agree.
So for people to know where we are up here in the Panhandle versus what's happening down by Wichita Falls
and Denton,
or in Vernon or all these different places. So I'll just say that Wildcat Bluff Nature Center, we've mentioned it a couple times. They have great hiking trails. If you're in this area or you live here, you got to check it out. It's really fantastic.
It's good. Yeah.
Next door is our Project Mariposa. It's a community land trust. But on April 11th, we're having a big event. with a bunch of running on new trails that we
Trails.
built that connect to Wildcat Bluff. It is going to be
It's
fantastic.
good. Yeah, yeah.
So
And we expect more of that kind of thing going forward. The other thing I want to say is that we had during spring break, there's a professor at WT who was National Teacher of the Year in 2015, and she brought out a group of high school kids who had never really spent any time out here and totally changed their perspective by getting them out hiking and looking and being out in this area. And I think that's another thing, just getting out into the area. You have to have a patience and kind of a subtle perspective to see the beauty here. There's a guy named Wallace Stegner who wrote this book called Getting Over the Color Green, which is very appropriate for our part of the state, this year especially. But I think that the more we can get young people out and really engaging with what's here, the brighter our future will be.
I'm really stunned, about younger people who've never been to Peladuro Canyon, much less Caprock Canyon, further south.
Right.
They just haven't.
Or here.
Right, or here. And this is close.
This is
here.
close. This is,
Wildcat,
yeah.
everything is close to town. So thank you, Mary, for everything you've done.
Well, it's
Because
my joy.
without you,
it's
none
my
of this would
passion.
have
Well,
happened.
it's me and a lot of other people, but it's been fun to be part of.